Today, the word Ponzi is synonymous with fraud, deception, and financial illusion, but at the beginning of the 20th century it was simply the name of a man whom people admired, trusted, and even applauded. Because at a time when most Americans were struggling to return to normal life after World War I, Charles Ponzi appeared to be someone who had discovered a way not merely to make money, but to bend the financial system itself to his will. Charles Ponzi was born in 1882 in the Italian town of Lugo into a family that was not destitute but never truly prosperous, and from an early age he grew up surrounded by conversations about missed opportunities, unrealized ambitions, and the belief that somewhere else there existed a different life in which success and money came more easily than they ever could in post-war Italy. While studying in Rome, Ponzi quickly realized that an academic future did not interest him, and instead he became drawn to the appearance of success rather than its substance, developing a habit of spending more than he earned, borrowing freely, making promises he could not keep, and living with the constant conviction that his breakthrough was just around the corner. At the turn of the century, the United States appeared to be the perfect stage for that breakthrough, as millions of immigrants believed that arriving in America was enough to start anew and achieve prosperity. And in 1903, Charles Ponzi arrived in the country nearly penniless, but convinced that his future success was inevitable. The reality of the American dream, however, proved far harsher than he had imagined. As Ponzi drifted from job to job, working as a laborer, waiter, clerk, and translator, frequently changing addresses, often living on the edge of poverty, and it was during this period that he first crossed into financial crime, serving time in a Canadian prison for forging documents and later being imprisoned again in the United States for check fraud. Rather than viewing these experiences as failures, Ponzi treated them as lessons, using them to study human psychology, the weaknesses of financial institutions, and the ease with which trusts could be manipulated through confidence, complex language, and the appearance of legitimacy. He learned how to speak in a way that commanded attention and persuaded people not to ask difficult questions, because most were not searching for the truth but for reassurance that their hopes were justified. After World War I, the global economy was in chaos. European currencies were collapsing, inflation surged across the continent, and exchange rates shifted constantly. And it was within this unstable environment that in 1919 Charles Ponzi discovered an obscure feature of the international financial system: international reply coupons. These coupons were designed to allow the sender of a letter in one country to pay for a reply from another country. But due to post-war currency distortions, Ponzi noticed that on paper the coupons appeared to be significantly cheaper in parts of Europe than their redemption value in the United States. This observation became the foundation of his legend, because arbitrage was a real and legal concept, and therefore his story did not sound criminal, only sophisticated, and he began speaking confidently about currency mechanisms, international postal systems, and a unique opportunity to profit from exchange rate differences, promising investors a 50% return in 45 days or a doubling of their money in 90 days. In an era when banks offered 5% annually, these claims sounded extraordinary, but not impossible, especially to a population eager to believe that the future would be brighter than the past. In early 1920, Ponzi founded the Securities Exchange Company in Boston, leasing offices in a respectable location, hiring staff, printing contracts and receipts, and carefully constructing every outward sign of a legitimate business operation. Early investors received their payments exactly as promised, which triggered a powerful chain reaction, as those who profited became enthusiastic promoters, telling friends, neighbors, and family members that they had witnessed something unprecedented. In reality, Ponzi conducted almost no meaningful business involving international reply coupons, because the physical limitations of the system made his claims impossible at scale, and instead he paid earlier investors with money collected from new ones, sustaining the illusion of a profitable enterprise as long as fresh capital continued to flow in. Within months, his company absorbed more than $15 million, a sum equivalent to hundreds of millions today, and on certain days more than $1 million in cash passed through his office, making him one of the most talked about financial figures in the United States. Ponzi embraced the role of a financial celebrity, purchasing expensive suits, automobiles, and property, granting interviews, and projecting absolute confidence in the legality of his operation. And when journalists raised uncomfortable questions, he responded aggressively, threatening lawsuits and relying on his public image to reinforce trust, which for many people was proof enough that nothing could be wrong. But the mathematics behind such a system could not be ignored forever, and in August 1920, journalists and financial analysts began comparing Ponzi's claimed operations with the actual number of international reply coupons in circulation worldwide, quickly realizing that even in theory his business could not exist at the scale he described. As newspapers published their findings, confidence collapsed, panic spread, and thousands of investors attempted to withdraw their money simultaneously. This moment proved fatal, because a system dependent on constant inflows cannot survive a mass outflow. And within days, the entire structure collapsed, leaving most investors ruined, as only a fraction of the $15 million remained. Charles Ponzi was arrested, pleaded guilty, and received several years in federal prison, and after his release he was deported to Italy, where he never regained prominence and gradually faded from public life. The final chapter of his life unfolded in Brazil, where he worked as a minor clerk stripped of wealth, influence, and recognition, and when he died in 1949, he was largely forgotten. Though his name endured as a definition for a class of financial schemes built not on real profits, but on trust and constant reinvestment. The enduring irony of Charles Ponzi's story is that he was neither the largest nor the most sophisticated fraudster in history, but he was the first to demonstrate on a massive scale how easily the illusion of stable wealth can be created when complexity, charisma, and collective hope converge. And that is why the Ponzi scheme never truly disappears, changing only its names, its packaging, and its era, while its consequences remain the same.